Welcome to another episode of the Trailblazers Experience Podcast, where we have candid conversations with amazing women sharing their career stories. My next guest is LISA SHARAPATA, CMO of the Arbinger Institute, and she's a seasoned, experienced leader in the industry, and I'm really looking forward to having this conversation. Good morning. Different time zones. Obviously, it's morning there, it's afternoon here. How are you?
I'm wonderful. How are you?
Great. We finally have a summer here in good old England, so we're embracing it as much as we can. Um,
Well, it's nice. Yeah, actually, my sister lives in England, and I hear from her all the time. She actually has a boat, and when she can get out on it, I know it's nice. So,
exactly
yeah.
that. Interesting. I was at a networking event and a lot of people were talking about how they're going to be going on their boats and how they, going along the coast. So it's now something that everybody's just going to be doing if they can. So if you have a boat, chapeau to you as well.
Yeah, I'm still waiting for that invite, by the way.
So Lisa, let's talk about your journey from various senior marketing roles to now Chief Marketing Officer at the Arbinger Institute is really impressive. Can you briefly just share your career path and what led you to focus on leadership development and culture transformation? Because I'm sure in your early 20s, that probably wasn't at the top of your list.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, in my early 20s, being a CMO wasn't even on the top of my list. I was working in an ad agency, and I was in graphic design, and that was my dream. Like, I was pretty excited about that. But I think over time, what I really started to learn about myself is I want to be involved in the strategy. I want to understand why we're doing something. And to even be effective in my job as a designer, I needed to really understand the audience, what we're trying to communicate to them, what do they care about. So through the course of really starting to explore more of that and getting, more involved in that strategic thinking, I ended up moving in house, and then I ended up getting more honestly, into the tech space is where I spent the last decade of my career before coming here. But after kind of a decade stint in B2B tech, which was pretty intense, and before that, a lot of different types of experience in different types of organizations, there was kind of one theme that has carried through all of it, which is people problems are the problems that are always getting in the way of success in the organizations that I've been in. And I just kind of took a step back and said, I want to do something that I really think is going to make a difference, beyond revenue intelligence or some sort of the newest and greatest marketing technology or something that I'm, marketing and selling, which is great and it's helpful and I use it and I love it. But for me, the biggest difference, and I feel like the place that I can make the most impact now, is helping other leaders and other organizations really see that the people problems are the things that are holding them back from greatness and success, and helping them kind of get out of their own way.
Yeah, that's so interesting. I think there also comes a point, like you said, you do the hustle and bustle of whether it's tech, whether it's marketing and delivering the tasks and the objectives and formulating strategies, but you sort of now want to have a purpose, as to what's the so what of everything that I'm doing and how can I then help businesses and also people in a way. Do you think you've been applying marketing principles as well in creating a high performing culture within organizations as part of that?
Well, I mean, I guess when you say marketing principles, when I go back to really what I think is great marketing, it is understanding your audience. It is really knowing the market, and you've got to have product market fit, and you need to make sure that you're clearly communicating the value. And so I do think that a lot of those things also transfer over into especially leadership teams and internally understanding the culture that exists, understanding where the challenges lie, and really, seeing the people in your organization and the challenges that they're facing, and how do you help them overcome them to reach their full potential. Yeah, yes, they definitely go hand in hand.
Yeah. So talk to me about the Arbinger Institute. What it is exactly, what is the institute and what is it you do there in your current
Okay.
role?
So the Arbinger Institute's been around for over 40 years, and it started off with a couple of, with actually one book and this principle that was based on outward mindset. Really, the premise is seeing people as people who matter as much as we do, and getting to the heart of those, like those relationships, and getting out of our own, like our own way, and just our own objectives and our own initiatives, and really realizing like our impact on other people and how we coexist to, achieve objectives and results together, or how we're making it harder to actually get where we are. And so those principles, again, started off with books and materials, and then organizations started asking Arbinger to come in and help them make these kinds of transformations. And so it's really only been in like the last kind of decade or so that there's been a focus on really bringing these leadership development and culture transformation solutions into organizations. And now we're really focused on that. Although I will say we still do a lot of research. All of our work is research backed, and we are launching the 4th edition of our book, Leadership and Self-Deception, later this summer as well. All of that's still intact. And also, like, how do we bring it home? How do we help people actually make those changes?
That's amazing. So a strong emphasis on mindset over behavioral change. Just looking back on you as a leader, what do you think are sort of the core values and ethics that you're bringing to the table, based on your experience that you've gathered over the years?
I guess personally, and this is why Arbinger just seemed like such a natural and good fit for me, is that like one of the things I learned, I guess, as a young young even teenager, is that when someone comes and tells me I need to change my behavior, good luck to that. Like, I rebel. I was just my own. I was like, okay, you don't want me to do that? I'll figure out a sneaky way to do it instead, right? So, it's really learned early on that me going and telling people what to do or how to do it isn't going to work. And I really need to understand, like, what motivates them? What's their carrot? Like, what inspires them, to get up in the morning and bring their best self. And that's different for everyone. And so that's what I think I've always brought to the table as a leader. That, and I guess also this rising mentality of like, seeing the goal and always being creative and whatever it takes to figure out a way to get there. But knowing like, okay, I'm pushing too hard. We need to regroup. The team's not with me. We need to like pause and work on like fixing some stuff that's going on internally before we can drive again. And like, just always gonna have like a good sense of, I guess, good instincts when it comes to like, when can we push? When can we drive? When do we need to pull back and work through some issues and challenges? And I think that some of that you can learn and be taught. Some of it, at least for me, I think it just was kind of a natural instinct that I've learned to really tap into and pay attention more and more to that. And like my nature is to just keep driving, but knowing like, you gotta bring everyone with you. You gotta pause here. Like, that's been, I think, the biggest learnings for me, again, is like seeing other people matter as much as I do. I can't get there alone. I need everyone, to be, in it with me. Otherwise, once we get there, like, what's the point? I'm not gonna, be able to sustain it anyway. So yeah,
Yeah.
those would be some of the things I would definitely, encourage other leaders to consider if they're, kind of alive to what's going on in their team.
And it feels like you've always enjoyed questioning the status quo because you've always, seen that there is a way we can make this happen. There is a way for us to progress and make things better, which is on one side, it's a positive trait to have, but also it can also catch you in your tracks. Don't you think, Lisa?
Yeah, it can. And I'll say, I mean, that's one thing early on, especially in my career, I would get really frustrated. And, I just had to learn, like, take a step back, take a deep breath, go with the flow a little bit more. Me trying to like push a boulder uphill is a lot more work than me kind of figuring out like how to hoist it up with a group of people. It just, yeah, it did. It took a lot of maturing and learning over time what works and what doesn't work.
About some of the challenges you've had throughout your career. So, you've had a great one and had some interesting roles. But what are some of the setbacks that you've faced, and what have those setbacks taught you?
Yeah, I mean, I think a couple things. First of all, some of my setbacks were just personal in my own life, going through a divorce with two little kids and, just things like that where I've had to make like prioritize other things besides my career. And then there's been other things like B2B tech. There's a lot of mergers, acquisitions, funding challenges, figuring out even just what that world was about was definitely a challenge for me. So I think those were, I feel like every kind of time I've gotten to a place where I'm like, okay, we're good. A curveball's been thrown at me. And, I think honestly, I've kind of again come to the conclusion that that is pretty normal. And what I've also learned is like the people who can handle that kind of pressure and deal with that under pressure, they're the ones that thrive. And so every time now when I get in those moments and I'm like, this is, so frustrating or this isn't working or so, it's like learning to take that step back, take that deep breath and just figure out like, how do I pivot or what changes do I need to make? What adjustments, can I make here? What can I control? And focusing on that. And so, I mean, really, I mean, you name it. I feel like anything you could bring up, I would say, yeah, I've dealt with that. From being the only woman in the room to, again, everything in between. But I think it's just that's been more of just kind of being able to be adaptable and resilient.
There's something to be said, there's strength in vulnerability and acknowledging that, you're only human, that you will have some personal challenges and you need to just go through each challenge as it is, break it into little bite-sized chunks and deal with it as it comes, because there will always be something, isn't it, Lisa, in life,
Yeah.
thrown it away.
And I love what you just said there because growing up and into my 30s, being vulnerable, just it wasn't in my vernacular. Actually, it was going through my divorce where I learned to be vulnerable and that it was okay to accept help and it was okay to admit failure. I mean, that was the biggest life lesson I think I could have ever gotten, and learning from that and being able to apply what you're saying, being able to say, like, I don't have the answer, or I messed up, or this is not working. I have to accept that, and I need help. Like those were things that were not a part of my kind of DNA growing up. So yeah, I think that is essential, and I'm really glad you made that point.
Yeah, I mean it's really important. Having interviewed so many women, that's the one common denominator, that we need to embrace the strength in our vulnerability, because it gives us the space to make the decisions that are right for us in that moment, and that will, push us forward. Because sometimes certain things have to take a step back for you to focus on other things as well. Well, has that impacted, giving back? Because beyond your professional role, you also serve as a DTEM content ambassador and advisor for Hashli. Do you want to talk a bit about that and what that means to you outside of work?
Yeah, absolutely. And I'll say, so go to market partners. I'm in T community. I'm also in Pavilion. And all of those things, what I've learned through all of this is community. Community. Without a community, you're a commodity is something I heard quite a while ago, and it's really stuck with me. Surrounding yourself with support, surrounding yourself, I even call it like my own board, my board members, my team, the people who are going to give me direction and help me out when I need advice or have a problem with something. So I definitely think, that's been part of me even seeking out like help and support and guidance. And then the giving back part, like when I joined Peak, that was really, me trying to break through into the C-suite. And I started doing a series on this and like bringing people along with me on my journey and trying to help other people do the same thing. Yeah, I definitely believe in just, first of all, the things that feel the best to me are always when I'm helping other people. And also I feel like I learn the most in those experiences as well. So I think all of those things, yes. I mean, they're things that over time have become more and more important to me in my career and my personal life too. Yeah.
I love that what you said about if it's not about community, then it's about commodity. That's a one to remember, isn't it? Because then you're just doing it for the bottom line and money at the core of it as well.
Absolutely.
Let's talk about self-care. And the reason why I always bring this up is we always see people's LinkedIn profiles or, the shiny profiles that we see on websites, and we say, oh my goodness, this woman is superwoman, superpower. She's going at 200 miles an hour. But self-care is so important. We've seen burnouts, we've seen people having mental breakdowns. How do you take care of you?
Another great question. I'll just I've kind of got a whole journey and story that goes along with that, but I'll try to synthesize it and say this is that I think for me, COVID was a very eye-opening moment in time where like myself and I know a lot of other people kind of had to pause, had to take a look at what they're doing and make a lot of adjustments, and life just forced upon us, right? And so, and we lost a family member during that time to COVID and just some other things too. And it was like, what is this all, to what end is this all about on all four? And so, I mean, my husband and I and my two daughters, we moved from Chicago to Charlotte, North Carolina. I switched industries. I mean, for me, I had to completely change my environment in order to really change my focus and reprioritize myself, self-care. And, part of why I wanted to be in the Charlotte area, North Carolina, is I wanted the four seasons, but I wanted to be outside. I wanted to be able to go hiking in the morning. I wanted to be, more sunshine, more like the things that I know really help me in my health and when I feel my best. And I wanted it just to be like integrated into my daily life and make it as easy as possible for me to prioritize those things. And I'll just say it's like it's like my first 2 hours of my morning is for me. And I have like, if I don't do that, I can just tell the rest of my day is totally thrown off. And but yeah, we had to get out of the hustle and bustle, shift focus in my career. Like I had to totally rip off a Band-Aid and make some very intentional changes in order to do it. So I'll just say it doesn't just happen by itself. You have to prioritize yourself. Otherwise, you're just going to keep doing all the things that everybody else wants you to do. Yeah.
I mean, yeah, that's amazing. I think the pandemic was a step change for a lot of, people. Some people thrived, some people made a big pivot for themselves. So on one hand, the fact that you've come out the other side and the things that matter to you are your priorities is brilliant and hopefully inspiring someone with that message along the way.
Yeah, I'll just say it's so worth it. Like, what are you waiting for? If you're one thinking, I really want to do this, I need to do this for myself. I've always wanted to do this, or I should try yoga, or I should try just do it. What are you waiting for?
That can happen, isn't it? That you fail and you just try something else instead. Yeah. Yeah. Now, networking and building connections, we hear about how important it is, whether you're an entrepreneur, whether you're rising the ranks in the business that you're working for, whether you're a startup person. How has that helped, you in your journey? And just share with me, even if some tips of how networking has helped you connect with, whether it's investors, mentors, or industry peers in the various stages of your career and your life.
Yeah, I mean, again, back to, when I started off and, just graphic design, agency, like I was not thinking about those things. And I didn't have it, wasn't like born into this great like social network of, all these like people at my fingertips that I could just reach out to and get a job or so it's been a lot of hard work. And it's really been just over time me learning that back to this, if you're don't have a community around you, you are a commodity. Like you need that support. And really being proactive and seeking out the people that, first of all, like I feel like they get me, but I also really admire, respect, and just never being afraid to ask. Like that was one of the things that I think was my strength is I didn't get in my own way. I was never afraid to say, can you help me figure this out? It looks like on LinkedIn, like once LinkedIn came around too, that was this genius. Like, you can see this person knows this person. Like, I'd really like an introduction. I'm trying to get into this. People, what I've learned too is like people love to help other people. It's very rare that someone's like, no, I'm not going to make, So, and when they do, find another path. Like it's, they said no. Like, what have you lost? I've had it's grassroots. It is been just hard work and also reciprocation. Like again, when I've like some of the communities I've joined or being on boards or whatever it is, me saying like, how can I help you? It's not just like giving or taking, it's got to be giving. So, yeah, but the more and more I've done that, I found the more, things have just kind of started to naturally fall into place too, because then people are like, oh, I know someone who would be really good at this, or they'll vouch for you if you like need it, you're like, hey, can you help me? I would like to talk to this person in this organization. They're much more willing to. So yeah, it's been essential. And I would never be here if I'd been under a rock the whole time. So
And there's something you've said about paying it forward, isn't it? I think that's the most important thing of remembering the person who actually took your phone call and if paying it forward just to help someone else, isn't it? So that we continue that cycle of positivity and lifting up and inspiring.
yeah, 100%. 100%. I mean, I should always, I don't know. I'm always even like, if I have the sense that I can see it, someone's like struggling with something, like how meaningful and helpful is it to them if you reach out and offer a helping hand, even if they don't take it, those are the kinds of things that people remember. It sticks with them. And at least for me, like it's the people that have, really gone above and beyond for me that like I just respect and admire so much and appreciate. I don't know. I feel like that's what it's all about in the end.
Yeah. And similarly with if we talk about women empowerment, I'm such a strong advocate. I feel girl power, we need to just uplift as much as we can. How are you championing women's empowerment and what changes would you like to see in the industry to create more opportunities for women?
Yeah, it's an interesting question, and I think about it quite a bit. And I'm actually going to an empowered CMO event that Sixth Sense is hosting next month, and it's all women. And I love that experience because it really is women lifting other women up and sharing kind of some of their kind of secrets and like how they've gotten where they are. And it's been really great networking as well. But I don't think it's always that rosy. I've also seen, I think, a lot of women who feel threatened by other women, and almost the opposite of that I've seen in my career as well, where they want to be the most intelligent woman in the room. Like that is their status symbol. That's the thing that makes them unique and important and special. And so you come in and start, putting your own 2 cents in or whatever, and a lot of women feel threatened by that. So I've seen kind of both sides of it, and I'll just say that my opinion is life is way too short it just goes back to a lot of what Arbinger's work's about too, this kind of, we call it being in the box. And it's like, you're either kind of in this worse than or better than space, or you can be in an I deserve space or need to be seen as space. And some of these concepts, like, I hadn't ever heard of until I came to Arbinger. But when I started realizing, like, this person is actually, they're in this worse than space, or they need to be seen as space. And it's not about me, it is about them. But trying to get to know them, understand like the challenges that they have experienced and what has made them feel threatened or made them feel like they need to be seen in a certain way and they're not. And I think also really helped me kind of bridge some of those gaps and build some of those relationships with other women that, otherwise I don't have. Because frankly, like, I think we also, especially like the strongest women I know, have a lot of drive, are competitive. Those are some of the things that like get us to where we are. So, then how do you also embrace like a more feminine side and lift other women up without feeling like you have to compete with them and keep them down, So yeah, I mean, it's definitely been a really unique journey, or I guess just interesting journey too, that I've spent a lot of time reflecting on in the last couple of years as I've learned more of Arbinger's work and like really understanding why, people are the way they are and how to, break down some of those walls.
I think that's where it comes to why it's so important as a leader or even in organizations to foster an inclusive environment, because understanding the different backgrounds that people have come from that have probably led them to act in that particular way, feeling that they need to be seen or need to be heard. It might be something where they're thinking, this is an opportunity I can't miss, that there's a better way of articulating yourself. But I think fostering culture of inclusion and belonging and understanding what position you're in and how can we support this person to become the best version of themselves, I think is really key.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, something else that I hadn't heard this term or really, I guess, understood it before I came to Arbinger, but this concept of psychological safety. Google actually did research on the most productive teams, the highest performing teams, and what made them the most productive. One of the top 5 things, and the thing that they kind of came back to, is kind of the thing that if you don't have this, nothing else works. It's psychological safety. And just starting to really understand that, it's like, if I don't feel comfortable, if I don't feel included, and I don't feel like I belong, first of all, I don't feel psychologically safe. But it's even like another level of, I also feel like I'm free to speak my mind and that something's not going to be held against me later. I'm not going to be like lashed out at or talked about behind my back. That is what really starts to create innovation and connection with people. When I truly feel like I can share my ideas, I can share pieces of myself, I'm not going to be rejected. If people don't like them, that's okay. And back to that vulnerability piece, like, I not like to be vulnerable, I have to feel safe and to give my best self and to be willing to put myself out there, even when I don't like have the answers. Like, I've worked for bosses that are like, don't come to me with a problem if you don't have the solution. And it's like, well, I know there's this big problem, and if I can't talk about it, eventually, like, I'm going to leave. When I leave is when I'm going to tell HR all the problems. And, by then it's too late. And, so yes, 100%. I think that it's becoming more and more talked about. I still think there's a lot of understanding that needs to happen for people to just break down their walls. And it's not just race. It's not just gender. It comes from, there's different ages and dynamics and cultures that we've grown up in and experiences that we've had that have created bias for us in our lives. And everyone is unique in that. Acknowledging that too makes it, kind of makes or breaks it. Because if you think that it's, just on paper, we've got this diverse team, that That's not going to create inclusion and belonging. It's not going to, that alone isn't going to do it. You really have to get real.
Yeah, and it comes down to the people, isn't it? Like you said, everyone's had different lived experiences and upbringings, and that plays a massive factor. So just, assuming that everyone's just going to get along and do what needs to be done, you need to understand and foster those environments is really important. So,
Yeah.
Lisa, you have had an amazing journey. I mean, you've had sort of like both sides of the coin, the entrepreneurship, and then obviously now where you are now as CMO. Which part have you enjoyed, and where do you see yourself next? Where do you see yourself going?
I will say I really enjoy where I am right now. And again, it was very intentional in moving this direction. But, also getting into a role, what I really like about being in this CMO role and where I see myself going is maybe even expanding upon it more is I love connecting all the dots. I love being able to see the big picture and like that North Star, where we need to go and coordinating all the things that need to happen to get there. That's where I want to be. I really enjoy that part of my role, and working with all the different people and teams that it takes to make something happen. More than the marketing part, more than the creative part, more than, all the other things that I've done in my career. And that's been the thing that just kind of has kept motivating me to go kind of fire.
Yeah, and it feels like a full circle moment, isn't it, with maturity and age, where you start saying, right, that experience there actually helped me learn this, and that's helping in this situation, and now I understand this team. It's an empowering moment, isn't it, when you realize all those moments where you were probably, I don't know, under your desk crying or not, or just walking out saying, I can't do
Banging
this
my head on
anymore.
the wall.
It's like a full circle
Why?
moment. Yes, you're now an oracle of wisdom. You now are the person everyone is looking up to. But it took a while to sort of get there.
Well, I still have those moments. I mean, even yesterday, reached out to one of my peers. I'm like, can you give me some advice? Like, how would you handle this situation? And she gave me a really great suggestion, and it's like, I think that's the thing too, is you always have to be open to feedback and willing to take a look at something from a different direction. At least for me, like that's how I continue to grow. If I think the day I think I know it all, the day I'm gonna fall flat on my face.
Yeah. And also like the CMO role, Chief Marketing Officer, that didn't exist a few years ago. There was a Chief Financial Officer, a CEO, and that was it. But now that there's different range of C-suite, because understanding the power of people and product and consumer at a high level is really important. So there are careers that will probably be invented in the next 5 or 10 years there's so much opportunity, I guess, as to where it can go, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think CMO has been around for a while, but then the CRO, which is a revenue role. And now there's always kind of this like, well, who owns what and who should report to who? And to your point, I mean, I think I'm seeing a lot more with even people and culture roles being elevated into C-suite roles, seeing like experience officers, just really starting. I think people are just becoming more alive to the fact that humanity is in everything we do and it matters, and that, we need to be considering the human experience as much as anything else.
Definitely, definitely. Lisa, we're now at the point where we're talking about Trailblazer takeaway tips for the audience, things you would tell your younger self, your, mature self, women in our age, women older, just women all over, in terms of takeaway tips to give them as nuggets for their journey moving forward.
Yeah. I mean, there's a few things that I try to constantly remind myself of. We talked about some of them, but one of them that I didn't mention is this kind of notion of inspecting what you expect. And it's kind of the flip of like, I remember somebody saying to me a long time ago, like, what did you think was going to happen? And it's like, before you get to that point, right? Like pausing before, like when you sense that something's off and really taking a step back and taking the time to inspect what's going on and think about, well, what are the possible outcomes? if we continue on this path, right? And so even just as a human being in your career, thinking, okay, so I'm here, these are the dynamics. Like, do I really think there's a path forward for me here? If I don't, what changes do I need to make? If I do, what maybe relationships do I need to work on building? And so I think that for me is kind of one of the biggest things. And then I guess on the other side of it is just this notion that everyone is going through something all the time. That means your boss. That means the person that you're having the biggest conflict with at work. Like there is something else going on in their lives besides just what you're seeing. And trying to keep that perspective, I guess, has also just really helped me to just like let go of some of my frustration and try to see the humanity in them. And usually that is when we have those like breakthrough moments that I can really like figure out how to connect or help solve the problem, or at the very least like detach myself from the frustration and the head banging on the wall. And just finding kind of recentering on that, so that because I know none of us are at our best selves when we're just banging our head on the wall or trying to push a boulder uphill by ourselves. So I would just say, like, when you feel yourselves in those moments, take a step back. That's what you expect. And consider that the other person is probably going through something in their life that you don't know about.
Lisa, brilliantly said. It was such a pleasure speaking to you. It's evident that you've been through an important and intense personal and professional journey, which has led you to this point. And we're all growing. I've learned so much just even listening to you, things for me to take away and introspect, and that's been great for our audiences as well. So thank you very much.
You bet. Thank you, Tola, for having me. It's been a pleasure.
Awesome. So this has been the Trailblazers Experience Podcast. You know where to find us, and tell another woman about the podcast. Thank you very much.